We're going to talk some baseball. Jim Leyritz joining us now on Over the Top Sports Radio, celebrating 100 episodes. Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, guys. How we doing?
Doing excellent. I'm doing a lot better than I was 22 years ago because I'm a big Braves fan. So let me just get it out of the way, Jim. A lot of the scars that I have started when 14-year-old me was watching the 1996 World Series, and my father, a Yankee season ticket holder, had to make sure I had to listen to John Sterling's last call when you guys won the World Series, but you were certainly a huge part of that. And these guys want to talk to you about a lot, and we're definitely going to get to it, but let me just get off the bat. Mark Wohlers, you guys have been down 6-0 down in Atlanta. Take me through that game and that at bat and how it really kind of changed the fortunes of two teams, because the Braves win that World Series. They're the team of the 90s. Instead, it becomes the Yankees who turn into the dynasty.
Yeah, well, as a Braves fan, I hate to make you feel even worse, but this is all over $5,000 that could have changed the course of history of two different organizations. And I don't know if you saw that article, but a guy named Hep Cronin used to be a Yankee scout, a Brave scout in Cincinnati, and another guy named Paul Snyder was the cross-checking scout. Long story short, I was supposed to be drafted out of high school with Barry Larkin, and I broke my leg 2 days before the draft. The team that was drafting me was your Atlanta Braves. And what happened was Hep Cronin came to me and said, okay, well, it was just a fracture. You'll be good in about 4 to 6 weeks. All of a sudden, I got better, and I was playing with the Midland team with Barry Larkin and them. And we went to Hep Cronin and said, listen, Jimmy's ready to sign. And he said, okay, let me check with them. And my dad told him it would cost him $10,000 to sign me. And they offered me $5,000, and I wouldn't take it. And it was funny because
so if I send you $5,000 right now, can I take back that memory?
You could have taken back that memory for $5,000.
Oh God.
It was kind of funny, but no, that moment with Mark Wohlers, that moment in the World Series was for me. It was kind of good. It was a great feeling to hit the home run. Like everybody says, oh, you must have been floating around the bases. But I said, the one thing that people didn't remember is the year before, I had hit what I thought was going to be my biggest home run ever in the extra inning game against Seattle in the playoffs after 15 innings. And it was a walk-off in Yankee Stadium, but then we were up 2-0, and we ended up losing 3 straight. And that home run became a footnote. All I could think about was if we don't win that game against the Braves and we don't win that World Series, it becomes a footnote. And fortunately, we won the game.
That's home run kind of big time home run, 95, and you guys blew the 2-0 lead. Do you think the Yankees dynasty could have started in 95 instead of 96? Either way, it would have been coming off the bat of your bat. Sorry.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that we were fortunate enough to do what we did in 95 to get the ball rolling. And Buck Showalter and Gene Michael had put together a good core nucleus of a team to really take off in 96. And when Joe Torre came in and took over, he came in and, he didn't try to do too much. He just kind of fit in and said, okay, I'm going to, mess with the pieces that I need to mess with and get this thing going. And, fortunately, like I said, we were able to win that year and start that thing. And, I always tell everybody that the home run was huge, it changed the momentum of the whole thing. But the biggest thing about that 96 team winning is if we would have lost that series to the Braves, as embarrassing as the first 2 games were, and they lose like they did in 97, Mariano Rivera would have been traded, Joe Torre would have been fired, and there would have been no 98, 99, 2000 for the Yankees. That's where that 96 team became the most important cog in that Yankee history, because those things never happen if we don't win in 96.
Wow. Well, thanks. I'm glad it happened at my expense, but either way, a great moment, something that will last with you forever. And of course, you won another ring with the Yankees in '99. So, last thing on that is that, obviously to Yankee fans, they're going to remember you mostly for that. Is that your most memorable moment, or was it the one against Seattle when you guys were playing for Donnie Baseball back then in that Seattle series? What was your most memorable moment?
Well, the walk-off home run in Yankee Stadium was was my dream from the first day that I signed with the Yankees, was to have that moment, to have that World Series, playoff atmosphere in New York. And after 5 years of playing on some pretty crappy teams, to finally get to that point, to me, that was my best moment, because I was able to enjoy it. It was a walk-off, and it was in Yankee Stadium in the playoffs. And against a team Seattle that year, that we had all kinds of fights and all kinds of, Randy Johnson and I went at it all year. It was a great moment. But of course, the '96 by far. Now that you look back in history and you realize the importance of it, that to the organization, that was the most important one.
And Jim, you had kind of an unorthodox batting stance. Did anyone ever try to change your approach, your batting stance, when you got to the majors?
Well, yeah, I mean that goes back to what I mentioned before. People always say, "Well, how did you get that stance?" I said, "Well, when I broke my leg in high school, these scouts told me that if I could get better and come back at the end of the summer, that they would sign me. So I put a cast on my left foot, and I took batting practice every day with a cast on there, and I couldn't bend it, and I had to go with that stiff front leg. Right around Double-A, Darren Johnson was our hitting coach in Albany, and he wanted me to hit for more power. And he tried to get me to hit like Eric Davis with the hands down and just let it go. And I ended up hitting 240 that year after leading the league and hitting in the first 2 years. I ended up hitting 240. And I hit maybe one more home run, but I just didn't feel comfortable. So I went back to the old stance in '89 and ended up leading the league and hitting again. And that was I never changed it from that point on.
Was Eddie Pettit your favorite pitcher to catch? If not, who was?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously for the 2 years that I caught him as his personal catcher, we had a pretty good relationship as far as his trust in me behind the plate and his confidence to throw whatever I put down. I used to always make a joke with him that I'd walk out about the seventh inning and say, "Hey, do me a favor and shake a little bit, because these guys they don't see you shaking at all. I want them to think that you're thinking too." But by far, he was one of my favorites to catch. And, of course, John Wetland was always, I wouldn't say so much fun, but intense to catch, because if we had a 3-run lead and John came in, we still won the game, but it got down to 1 run a lot. And it was intense. And I still can remember catching the last out in that, and I'm sorry to bring it up again, but that Braves game when Terry Pendleton hit one, and then the next night Luis Polonia hit one. To catch those 2 final outs of those 2 games, the pressure was just so intense.
You can bring that up as much as you want, Jim. I'm a big Yankee fan alongside this Braves fan. So, Giancarlo Stanton was the big trade this offseason. He goes to the New York Yankees. It wasn't Buster Olney. It wasn't Jack Curry. It wasn't anybody from MLB Network. It was the Jim Leyritz who first reported this news. Where did you get this information? And tell us about how you got the sources for this.
Well, a good reporter never gives up his source. But what I will say is that my source just happened to be in the right place at the right time in Miami with the right people, and gave me a little phone call from the bathroom and said, "Dude, you're going to love this news." I said, "What's that?" And he said, "I was just with some people that know Stanton, and he okayed a trade to the Yankees." And I said, "Is it done?" And he said, "Yes, it's done." I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to put it out there." And I put it out, I think it was 8 o'clock that night before. And about 6 in the morning is when it really finally got announced. And I remember I got a phone call from Harold Reynolds. He left me a message on my phone, said, "How did you find this out before these guys that would give up their firstborn to break that kind of news?" And I said, "You know what? I just happened to know some people and be in the right place at the right time."
I remember screenshotting your tweet and sending it to people and being laughed at. And now you got some credibility. So anytime you want to send them out more, maybe tag Over the Top Sports with it, and we'll send it out with you.
Well, you know what? I'm going to be joining the radio ranks with you pretty soon. I'm getting ready to ink a deal hopefully next month with a couple stations and bring back my radio show. So I'll be out there making more predictions and following it a little bit more closely than I have been.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that. We look forward to hearing that. Jim, I just want to talk to you. We don't have to get into it, but there was some off-field issues. What was the turning point for you with those issues to where you are now? Because it's almost a full 360.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it was a matter of just – it was an unfortunate situation to be involved in. I made a horrible mistake drinking and driving, but I knew that the truth is on my side. I always tell people, I was kind of the Duke lacrosse situation on a smaller scale. I had a prosecuting attorney who was running to become a judge, who had a name that was going to try to promote her career. And after all of the things, after waiting 3 years, it took the jury less than 30 minutes to realize with half the evidence that I didn't cause this accident, but that I was drinking and driving and that I should be, guilty of that. But really the thing that got me through those 3 years was I read a book called The Purpose-Driven Life by this pastor named Rick Warren, who is now my pastor at my church here in California where I live. I actually met my now wife through that book and sharing that book with each other. But it was a book that kind of really took me out of all of those years of, looking back at my career, looking at my life. It was all about me. And, if you ever, read my book called Catching Heat, you can see the transition that it goes from being, this guy that got in, didn't get along with managers, didn't get along with things. And then all of a sudden the transition, when something like this tragic happens in your life, you realize that, wow, you know what, I got to take a step back and change my life. And I was able to do that through that book. And since that day, my life is like you said, has done a complete 360. And every now and then, you still give into your ego once in a while, but I try not to. But it really is. The first 4 words in that book. It's not about me. And once I got to that mindset, once I got to that area, my life has gotten so much better.
1057 Over the Top Sports Radio, joined by former New York Yankee, 2-time World Series champion Jim Leyritz. And you just said it's not about me, and it seems like you really live by that, because now you're helping other people. I know you just had a big event recently. I know your charity is pinktide.org, and you raised a ton of money for Stony Brook Children's Hospital. So not only have you kind of changed your life around, but now you're out there and you're changing other people's lives, specifically young children. Talk to us a little bit about your charity and especially that event that raised over $500,000, I heard.
Yeah, I mean, pinktide.org is an organization in Long Island started by 2 brothers named Mike and Rich Cave, who are my bosses for the title company that I work for, because we do title insurance for commercial and residential real estate. But the philanthropic arm that they started about 8 years ago is called pinktide.org, and we raise money for all different types of charities and foundations throughout Long Island and New York that need financial assistance. So basically, if there's a community that needs money raised for something, we go into that community, we raise the money in that community, and that money stays in that community. And I really love the concept of this idea, because we're not the money doesn't go to a national organization. It's a 100% pass-through charity, so there's no overhead cost. All the money goes to where it's raised. And these 2 brothers have just, they've blessed me by giving me the opportunity to make money doing the title insurance, but also to be their spokesperson for their charity and playing all these charity events and get to meet all these people that were touching their lives. And I'm telling you right now, I had an experience in 1996 with 2 little boys getting adopted that I sponsored, and that moment changed my life forever, of how using my notoriety or whatever to be able to change people's lives or help people's lives, that I would always continue to do that. And I've been very blessed the last 4 years to be with these guys and to have that opportunity with pinktide.org.
And then you're also going to, soon it says you're going to be going on a speaking tour in August about overcoming setbacks, beating the odds, never giving up. I guess you're going to be able to use your life experience now also to help maybe educate others and kind of make the world a better place in that regard too.
Yeah, I'm hoping to be able to do I've done a couple of them, where I go into colleges and I spend a whole day at the college where I'll meet with 20 kids for lunch. I'll meet with another 20 kids somewhere else, and then have a speech that I speak to an auditorium full of college athletes or college kids, and just talk about the experiences of what I've been through, and especially for the athletes, to really make them understand that one bad decision can change your life, and that you need to consider everything that you do in your life and the consequences before you do those actions. And I think it'd be an opportunity to talk to a lot of kids about, again, my transition that I've done from being the professional athlete to losing that notoriety to reinventing it in the business world, the business community, using some of the same things I did as a ball player to become successful on the business side, and to have a philanthropic give back to where that we're changing lives and helping people.
No, and that's just great, and that's one of the things that when you can have a celebrity like that and use that to help other kids, that's very commendable. So we thank you for that too. And We thank you for a couple minutes today. I certainly still don't thank you for that $5,000 being the difference between the childhood World Series and all that. But, thank you so much for that. And, best of luck with that, and best of luck with your, radio, getting back into the radio career. And we hope to catch up with you again soon.
All right, guys. Anytime. I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, thank you. That's former Yankee two-time World Series champion Jim Leyritz joining us on Over the Top Sports Radio.